Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, welcome back, welcome if you're new. My name is Brittany and in today's video I'm going to be doing a voiceover so that I can be chatty with you guys because I need to focus on what I'm doing. So um, I'm going to be setting up my March 2024 bullet journal spreads. And if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I try to get this out to you guys on the first of each month. You can go back and look at February and January. They're in my playlist on the channel. But today's spread is going to be focusing on the German philosopher Goethe. If you have watched my previous videos, you know that I shared with you what my first 6 months of 2024 themes were going to be. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on for the month of March. And I took some other inspiration from my favorite Disney movie, Beauty and the Beast, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But right now we're going to flip through the month of February very quickly. Um, I tried to focus it on love and romance for Valentine's Day, so I did Messy Hearts. You can see my movies that I wanted to see versus the ones that I did see. My habit tracker, which, wasn't very good. Um, my little decorations that I put in the middle spreads. And then there is my doodle a day, which I love having it all in one place. And then here is the 100-day challenge that started on February 18th. This is my first year participating, and so far I have done a different style book each day since the start of the challenge. I actually started making books um, before the challenge started. So if you check out my Instagram, you can see the ones that I have listed here. And I'm just going to keep flipping back to that throughout the year or the next couple months anyways, while the challenge is in progress, and keep adding my details there. So when it's all done, I'll reference it and we'll go back and check it all out together. And then I'll probably, during that, I'll probably do like a flip, quote unquote flip, even though it's not like a journal that I can flip, but I'll probably just leave that part of my bullet journal open so that you guys can all look at the list of everything that I did for each day of the 100-day project. And then um, I will probably like pull some of those projects out and show you guys, talk to you about them, things like that. So if you're interested in seeing any of those books like live and not just in a picture or still on my Instagram, you might want to stay tuned and check out that video once I get it done, because I'll like actually open the books up. I'll talk to you about like the materials that I use to make it. Um, Tell you a little bit about like my inspiration and whatnot. So here I'm just trying to get organized, and I wanted to separate my pens. So these ones that I'm going to start with are those new ones that I recently talked to you guys about in my tiny stationery haul video. They were actually recommended by the workshop instructor for a surface design workshop that I was taking at the time. And I was already placing an order for some other items on Amazon, and they happened to have these. So I went ahead and I put them in the cart and thought I'm going to give them a try. But they're basically a fine liner. They're by Uni-ball, and I've used them once, maybe twice prior to doing them here. So this is technically like my first time using them, because the other times that I used them, it was just like a line on the page or whatever. I don't think that I've done any drawing with them. I don't know. When I draw, I usually pivot towards my Sakura Micron pens. So I need to start grabbing these pens or gravitating towards them to give them a good solid try. But as I was doing this spread, I found that, there wasn't that much of a difference between the different tip sizes, in my opinion. Whereas with the microns, I feel like those are more distinct. Like like I could definitely tell a difference between the 005 and the 1, for example. But with these ones, I didn't really notice that. I mean, I tried to always hold the pen up to the camera lens so that you can see which pen and tip size I'm working with for the different parts of this, but I don't know, maybe it's just me. I didn't really tell that much of a difference. The one thing that I did notice about these pens, though, the black Uni-ball um, fine liners that I'm using right now to write out this quote from Goth is, or Goth, however you say it. Sorry if I said it wrong. Um, is that the tip part is more protruding or larger than those on the Micron pens. So if you're familiar using the Micron, the Sakura Pigma Micron pens, those tips for me, anything I'd say 6 and below, they get damaged pretty easily. Like if have a heavy hand or if you use them extensively with drawing and writing, those tips, they get smashed, they get squished, they get bent pretty easily. I'm not sure if that's going to happen with these pens. We'll just have to see as I use them. But I think that these tips are um, potentially that it could happen with them because they are larger. They are protruding more out of the little metal encasement. So, as I said, I'm focusing this month's theme on the German philosopher Goethe. We're just going to go with that pronunciation. And he was actually a philosopher who studied many things, and he was well versed in a number of subjects. So he wrote and was big into like politics. And one of the things that I like about him was that he liked botany and anatomy. But because I didn't want like there to be a quote on every single page, just because I was focusing on him, and I didn't really want to draw like a cameo picture of him, I decided to focus on the fact that he's German. So for the rest of the features, there's a couple different features in this theme. They're German inspired. And the thing that I'm going to be working on next is like the architecture that's very recognizable in Germany. And it's basically like a little village house, townhouse, with those beautiful, bold brown and black markings on the building. They're like structural supports. And I love that. And as I said, my favorite Disney movie is Beauty and the Beast. So I was inspired by the village in that movie to kind of draw a little town, a German townhouse. And then I wanted to get the fence to be like an overlapping arch because I thought that that was very typical of like a German village type fence that you would see. But then also, I wanted there to be a fountain. And I don't know, like, it wasn't the particular scene in the movie where Belle is reading on the fountain that inspired me. I just thought that a fountain would be appropriate. And if you've ever seen the film, what is it called now? It's got Diane Lane in it about Tuscany. I can't remember now. But there's a scene in it that involves a fountain, and that's what came to my mind. Like, that's what made me think that I wanted a fountain in it. So, if you know anything about the movie Beauty and the Beast, it's actually like French based, but because a lot of the houses and the village have a German feel to them, um, it's considered German influenced. So there's like cobblestone walkways. So I didn't do a walkway. Like you're not gonna see that bit here, but I tried to do like a cobblestone or a pebbled brick at the base of the fountain. And that fountain has been debated on where exactly in France they got the inspiration for that for the movie. And there's a couple different places, but the one that's the most popular is believed to be in Colmar, France. So I thought that was interesting that it was actually illustrated after a couple different ones. And there's been a lot of illustrators and animators who have worked for Disney over the years, but I didn't know until I started to look up information about the different type of architecture and the buildings that were used or inspired to be used in the movie, that there were so many animators and illustrators who worked on the Beauty and the Beast film. And I got to research a little bit about the novel, the stories, how they're different, the different people who have written for it, and to look at the different illustrations that's been done for it over time was really interesting to me because I didn't know that at one point the beast was a wild boar. He had a wild boar head, which I think is very interesting. And then at another story by somebody else, a different artist drew the beast head as an ape. So I thought that was really interesting, the different takes and perspectives of how the beast was going to be represented. And I don't know like what animal the beast in the Disney animated movie or film is drawn after, but he doesn't look like a wild boar or an ape to me. So I don't know. Jury's out on that. Maybe he's just a very interesting and creative mashup of a couple different creatures. I don't know. But I thought that was very interesting. And I was just really inspired. Here lately, I've been kind of really delved into Disney, and I've just been trying to learn about the different illustrators and where they got their inspiration over the years. Because I think that I'm going to, in some of the books that I made that are from the Little Golden Disney books, I think that I'm going to try my hand at doing some illustration inspired by the animation and see how that goes. But if I do that, I'm not sure if I'm going to share it. I think that's just something I'm going to do personally. Which brings me to the next topic I wanted to cover with you guys while I continue to draw. I haven't given too many updates here recently, but at the end of March, I was planning on doing like a channel catch up, like a first quarter of 2024, like follow up on how all my journaling systems are going and just kind of let you guys know where I am with all of these new systems that I put into place at the beginning of this year and kind of like give you my feedback on what's working versus what's not working. And I can tell you already at the start of February, really the end of January, I could already tell which ones were not going to be successful. And I think that I have mentioned that previously, but I wanted to go more in depth. So I wanted to have a video specifically for that. But I'll tell you guys a little bit about it now. So, one of the things, I'll keep the focus on the bullet journal because that's what we're working on today. One of the things that, excuse me, I've noticed I'm not liking that I've changed about the bullet journal system is I removed my line a day gratitude section from my bullet journal and I put that in my Hobonichi weeks. And then I also removed my mood tracker and I put that in my Hobonichi weeks. And initially, I thought that by having all of my gratitude in one place, I would be able to reference it more easily. And I thought that it would be a better experience journaling to have a year's long worth of gratitude in one book, and I'm not liking that. The more in depth I get with my art journey, the more I want my bullet journal to be artistic. And so I'm trying to do more in-depth drawings with my spreads, and I'm trying to have more color in my spreads, which is another reason why I'm um, doing the coloring and not just the lining in this video. Usually I just do the black lines, but I'm doing some coloring today. But the other thing too that I changed with this system is um, I have I'm not been keeping up with it like I used to because those two things have been removed. And I didn't really realize when I removed them that those were um, not initiatives or draws, but those were like tasks that I enjoyed doing in my bullet journal as much as I do. And that those were kind of like my reasons for going into my bullet journal every day. So I don't know if I'm going to put them back in after March, but they're not included in the March um, setup, in other words, because I wanted to give myself another month and see if my feelings change on that. I don't think they're going to, but you never know. We'll see. And then something else I wanted to do with my bullet journal was I wanted to add more things into my monthly spreads. So that's why you've seen um, in another video that will be coming out soon. So I guess you haven't seen it yet, but you will see that at the end of February, I included one of my art challenges, which was the Feb Floral Alphabet 24 challenge. And for that, I decided to take pink erasers and carve the flower of the day in them. And that essentially turns them into a stamp. So I stamp them at the end of my February spreads. And I really like, you guys know this already, I've talked about it before. I really like having my art challenges all in one place because it's such a great experience when you've achieved that and you've completed it to be able to look at it all across, one page or a spread. So you'll be able to see that. And then the other thing that I added was at the end of February, I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I was going to participate in Inco Rye Month. Um, and I ended up deciding last minute that I would participate, but I would do it my own way. So typically, people who participate in Inco Rye Month, they share their address, and then they also pick people who have also shared their address, and then we write to each other. So I did not share my address. I instead decided that I was going to um, just use that time to get caught up on my current pen pal letters because I was a little bit behind. And then I picked a couple people to reach out and connect with. And it seemed like it worked a lot better than what I've done in, you know, the previous year. I can only say the previous year because this was just my second year participating. But last year, what I did was I picked 28 new people to correspond with, and I made envelopes. I did little tuck ins. I decorated everything. And it was a little bit of an investment, and I enjoyed being creative and making each letter and envelope special. But I didn't have that time to dedicate to it this year. Um, so I still wanted to participate, but for me, because I am a creative, I feel like sometimes, and you guys might relate to this, but I feel like if I can't give my all, then I don't really want to participate at all because I know that I'll be disappointed that I didn't do more. And, I don't know if that's like a thing, if there's like a label you can put on that, but like overachiever or something, but that's just something that I recognize about myself, and I didn't want to feel disappointed. So I changed the rules a little bit. And not that there's very strict rules around that to begin with, but I just decided to make it my own little project or event, which is kind of what I'm thinking about doing with the 100-day project as well. Um, Being my first year participating in it, I've not really gotten that many um, feedback from other people who have participated other than like what I've looked up online and researched a little bit. Like, I wouldn't say that anybody that I write to or any of my friends have shared their experience with me because I don't know anyone else who's done it except for like two of my pen pals I think have participated in it, and I've just seen their stuff like shared on social media. But what I'm thinking about doing is, since it seems like to me, from what I know of it, that you kind of like pick a project or a topic to cover each day for 100 days. It seems like the topic is the same for all 100 days. And as much as I would love to commit to that, here we go, you're going to notice a pattern. I don't know that I can keep that up with everything that I have going on. So, what I think I'm going to do is, if you notice when I showed you the 100-day challenge spread, when I flipped before I started this one, I had 12 days written out in red for the month of February, and then I have the next 12 days written out in green for March. And what I'm thinking about doing is a different project for each 12 days of the 100-day project. This way, it's kind of like I'm refreshing my creativity. Like, I'm not going to get burned out on doing the same thing every day for 100 days. Um, Besides, I don't have that long of a attention span anyways, if we're being honest. So, like, I really don't think that I could do the same thing for 100 days without getting bored somewhere along the line. So, what I'm thinking about doing is, I did books for the first 12 days, and I'm thinking about, adding like calligraphy because I've wanted to learn some, different types of brush strokes. I was thinking about doing maybe 12 days of watercolor and just like switching it up every 12 days, which should get me about like 8 to 9 different projects. And I think that that's pretty good. I mean, I was going to do every 10 days, make it even, but I've already made 12 plus books. So I'm just going to be different. I'm just going to be different about the whole project. I'm going to go color outside the lines, and I'm just going to do it my way. And it's going to be great. Um, I'm declaring it right now. It's going to be great. So if you're interested in following along with that in that journey, feel free to follow along on my Instagram. I do try to post daily in my stories. And I heard somebody say in like a live video recently that they felt like they were losing followers because they post every day. And I'm like, I do that for me. I'm not doing it to be annoying, or I'm not doing it to get somebody's attention. That's like my self accountability. So if I'm posting to my stories every day and annoying you, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry because I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Um, so just like put me on mute. But anyways, that's like my method for social media. I use it for self accountability. And so that's why I post a lot of my artwork to my stories. And if you want to follow along, feel free. If you get tired of me, just mute me. Um, so yeah, here I'm just cleaning up the pencil lines. And if you've ever used a Tombow dual marker over pencil, for the most part, you can still erase the pencil underneath if you are very careful. Um, like, let it dry a little bit before you try, because when you first have your ink down, it can tear your book, I should say. It can tear your paper. So let it dry for a little bit before you try to erase it, and then just be gentle. I've had some colors where the pencil will not erase underneath it. So just keep that in mind too. That if you do like your theme in pencil first, you might not always be able to erase it if you do your markers over top. Now, if your color is dark enough, of course, you won't have to erase, but if you look really closely at what I'm doing, I'm not exactly covering up my pencil lines. I mean, they're there as a guide for me, but I'm not like going right over top of the pencil. So almost at everything that I drew, I have to erase at least something. And for this page, I'm just doing another Dutch door or a half page. I've already cut it out because I wanted to focus on that and not like mess up with my scissors. But something else that I wanted to have in this month's theme, especially since the focus is on German things and like cultural pieces, I decided that I was going to do some folk art. And if you're familiar with like my Vlogmas video where I made a paper ornament to honor my ancestor who is a patriot or was a patriot soldier, then you know that my family came over from Germany and they were among the first settlers in the state of Pennsylvania. So, like, I actually have a little certificate and everything from the county where they were the first settlers. And something that's very common in the area where they decided to create their homestead is like folk art. And that's something that they brought over with them. And it's known today as Pennsylvania Dutch. This is very common amongst the Amish in our area as well. If you ever visit like Ohio's Amish country and you happen to overhear the Amish speaking to each other, most of the time they're speaking German. Not all the time, but most of the time they're speaking German. And a lot of this folk art is very popular in those areas. Also, cuckoo clocks are very popular. Inspiration and features of the Black Forest of Germany are very popular here. And so this art that is known here or in the Amish community around where I live, known as Pennsylvania Dutch, something that's very popular about it, besides the bright, bold colors, which is another reason why I love it, is they do hex signs. And I can remember as a kid growing up, my great grandparents still used hex signs on their barns on the farm. And the hex signs were not like a curse or anything like that. I know you hear the word hex and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is this? Magic? No. It was like a good fortune or a promise. So the hex sign that I'm drawing features a clover or a shamrock and two birds, and it is like a welcome sign. And if you've ever seen, like, basically, it's like a good luck or a good welcome. So if you've ever seen a hex sign, they were usually used on like farmsteads, on their barns, sometimes on the side of their houses, and it was a good omen. So it was to bless the crops, or it was to bless the house, bless the kitchen, bless the family, or just welcome outsiders, welcome people from the community. So a lot of times when you see them, they will have the bright, bold colors and will say something on them like Wilcam or Wilkheim, and that's welcome. But if you are curious about the coloring, each color stands and represents for something different. So a lot of them that have yellow, that represents something different, or if they use green or red, each color represents something different, and they're all like good luck charms or blessings. So I wanted to put that kind of like as a nod to my grandparents, my great grandparents, and my great grandparents were also German. They were Griswolds from New England, and so I have them on both my maternal side and my paternal side. And I just wanted to give a little nod to them, so I decided to do a hex sign. So for the shamrock, I'm deciding to use really bold colors, and I'm going to go in and do a black line around everything that I color. And that's very common too with the hex signs. They usually have a bold black outline. Not always, but some of them will have that feature. And I decided to do the clover one to represent March, but also because I love that it had two birds on it and that the clover kind of looked like the petals of the clover looked like hearts coming out of February. I just thought that that was really appropriate. And then something else that I wanted to do was I selected a few quotes that I wanted to include that I liked from Goethe, the philosopher Goethe. So on the opposite page of this spread, I wrote, I'll read it to you. Magic is believing in yourself. If you can do that, you can make anything happen. And I just love that, especially since I have the little like village townhome and the fountain that was inspired by Beauty and the Beast. A lot of people um, kind of like associate Disney with magic. I think that it's a very common association, especially with, the castle and, the fairies and the fairy godmothers. So I thought that that quote was very fitting. And this was kind of like a start of my next 12 days of my 100-day project because I am doing a calligraphy style font that I've never done before, where like the right end of the letter curls up. So I tried to carry that throughout the month of March for the entire spread, and it was a little tricky. It took some getting used to, but by the end, I didn't have to reference the alphabet sample of the calligraphy. I remembered how each of the letters were shaped, so that was a fun one. And here I'm just using those liner pens to go in and do some more detail work on each of the petals of the shamrock. So this kind of looks like the veins in the leaves. And something that's typical of the hex signs is there's no like shadow or like a liner on any of the figures that are ever used in a hex sign. The shapes that are used on them are always an entirely solid color. So you wouldn't see like a light centered shamrock with a dark green liner. It would all be a solid green, and then it may or may not have that black line around it, which, I think is just neat. So, another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about why I continue to decorate this hex sign is for my geocaching series that I've started. I was showing you guys how I got started with journaling by making a leather journal that I'm going to be using to do my sketches in. And I was thinking about when I am doing select geocache locations, about actually going to the place so that you guys can see it in the video. I probably won't be able to do that for all of the locations, but for some of them, I was thinking about doing that and then sketching the cache, like where the cache was hidden, so you can see it live on the video, and then you can also like compare it to how I drew it and see how similar or not so similar that it might turn out. And I was thinking about doing that. I think that that might be an interesting way to put my spin on my interpretation of urban sketching. And that's another thing that I really liked about how I was setting up this month's spread with the German village townhome is because I kind of felt like it was a play on urban sketching. Like I know that the image and the inspiration was in my head, but I feel like because I took the Micron pens and kind of did like a scratchy outline when I did like the basic layout, that it was kind of like a play on urban sketching. So that was like another thing that I wanted to start, another project that is tied into this month's spread. And if you haven't noticed by now, like almost everything that I do in my journals has sentimental meaning to me. I mean, it has multiple meanings most of the time. It represents multiple things in my life, and I'm drawn to things like that. The synchronicities, the serendipity, I love all of that stuff. And here I'm just adding some color to the floral design that's at the bottom. And I want these to be reds and oranges because those are the colors that those flowers typically are. And they're like bright, bright red. And I'm doing my best with this marker here. This, I believe, is the 845, and I'm noticing that I'm not always holding the pens up for you to see which ones I'm using. So I will do my best to add those numbers in the description of this video. So if you want to use the same colors that I'm using, if you should create something similar, you'll be able to reference that. So there I held that one up, the 925, but I believe the red was 845. And the only reason that I think I'm correct on that is because that is the one Tombow that I had. If you watched the video before when I was complaining about it, that when I bought it from the store, it was like all used up by the time I got it home. And I was like, how did you get away with selling me a used marker? But I guess it's just like the pen that everybody tested, and I just happened to be the person to buy it. Um, so yeah, I've since thrown that pen away so that it doesn't get used again because it is quite dull, and without water to refresh it, it's a waste of time. So I just tossed it. Um, Here I am outlining the birds in blue, and I decided to do the birds in blue and not red because I love bluebirds. Normally, I would do a red bird because the cardinal is the state bird of Ohio, and I love to watch for birds like in my yard, especially cardinals. But this time I wanted them to be blue. Which reminds me, um, I had done a poll on my channel, if you visited the community section lately, asking if you would be interested in a flower gardening journal series. And today, March 1st, is when I said that I was going to start sowing my seeds for this year. So I will give it, let's do one more week. I will give it one more week. And if you have heard this, if you made it this far in the video and you have heard about that poll, please go over there and take that poll and let me know if you're interested in that. And I will do the seed sowing with you on camera. So I'll give it another week. I'll see if it gets any response. And then if there's an interest, I will sow the seeds with you and talk to you about how I journal what I am gardening and planting in the yard. It's not going to hurt to sow them a week later, especially not since it's getting colder this week. But just to give you like a heads up of what that might entail, I have a journal that I keep for all of the plants that I plant throughout my yard, and like where they're located and when I planted them, so that if anything happens, like a natural disaster or like a storm tears through or something and like destroys them, I can reference the book and go back and say, okay, well, this was where my rose garden was, and then I can just get the same roses and replant them. And then, so I have that in the journal. I have like the seed packets and the tags that come off of my flowers saved in there. So it's in a kind of a way, it's like a junk journal also. And then I'm probably going to start drawing in it just because I think that it would be a nice addition. Right now, if you were to look in it, you'd probably laugh because when I did the layout of one of my most recent flower gardens, I used symbols for the plants that I put in it. So you have like weird shapes that are supposed to be representative of the flowers that are in it. Nobody understands it but me, but if I were to talk with you about it, I would explain what they are, what each shape, what plant each shape is. But anyways, so that's something that if you're interested in, I could start filming also. And then in addition to the geocaching, some of the geocaches were located in state parks or other places where there are nearly located nature trails. And I was thinking about going on like a hike in a video. I don't know. Maybe I should do a poll on that. Um, maybe you would be incredibly bored watching me go on a hike, but I might do that as part of the geocaching series. And that is going to start, like the sketching part of it is going to start probably later this month or early April. I wanted to wait until I actually was able to do my first geocache find of 2024 just because I thought that it would be symbolic, but we'll see. The next video in that series is scheduled to come out soon, and it's the second part of making a journal, so it's going to be making inserts. And obviously, I want to wait until after it airs before I actually start the drawing part of that series. So you have that to look forward to also. And then um, I have gotten a request from a couple of my pen pals to share some of my crochet on my channel. Um, so I hate to say it again, being repetitive, but maybe I'll do a poll on that also, just to kind of like gauge the interest, because I have like a couple projects that I could share as far as crochet goes, but in my space where I do my recording, like in my bindery where I am doing this recording, there's not like a lot of room for me to have like a large crochet project. So like right now, one of the projects that I have is kind of like this scraps blanket that I'm making for myself, and there would be no way for me to like show you guys what I was doing without having like a much larger space, because if I tried to do it in this space, my stitches would probably get loosened from the weight of the blanket pulling, because I wouldn't be able to have the whole blanket on the table, in other words. But if you remember when I flipped my 2023 bullet journal, getting back on topic, bullet journal, there was a spread that I did that did like the year in pixels for the temperature. And I thought about making a scarf following that pixel graph. So that's something that I could put in there. One of my pen friends also asked if I could teach them a little bit of crochet through the mail, and we haven't really gotten into that in the last couple letters that we've written, but this could be an alternative. I could teach over YouTube. So If you guys are interested in that, let me know. And something else I wanted to catch you guys up on is the comments. I have gotten mixed reviews on my videos because my comments are not always turned on. I have my YouTube channel set up so that my comments are automatically shut off. That's just how I set my channel up when I started my YouTube channel. So every time I upload a video, I have to go all the way through every feature and manually turn them on if I'm going to have them on, which I don't mind doing. It's not that big of a deal at all. But I feel like my videos um, don't always require like a comment. Like I'm sharing something with you. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a prolonged conversation type of thing. So I will do my best to keep them turned on, but I am going to hold all comments due to a recent issue that I was experiencing with my comments. And I won't get into that, but I'll just let you know I had to do some reporting and some blocking, and we'll leave it at that because I don't want this to be turned into a negative thing. I want this to remain a positive space for creativity. So, on other updates, I am still doing my Photoshop work with my class, and you'll hear a little bit more about that in my video that I recently told you guys about that's scheduled to come out soon, where I am sharing with you the carved erasers that I did. And I'm going to be using what I've learned in Photoshop to create something that you might be interested in that is going to be kind of like a print on demand type offering. I don't know if I'm going to set that up on my YouTube channel for purchase or if I'm going to put that in my Shopify store, but it might just be something that I do and share like with my pen pals. I haven't decided. I don't even know for sure what I'm going to make. All I know is that I'm going to put all of my eraser images together. I'm going to organize them the same direction, have them in the same order as the challenge, and then I'm going to sign it somehow with my artist mark and signature, and I'll probably put like the hashtag or the title of the art challenge on it somewhere. And then I was thinking of doing like print on demand stationery or like postcards. I'm definitely going to be getting a t-shirt for myself. So that's something that you can look forward to following along with and seeing how that goes. When I'm waving my hand back and forth that you just saw me do, I'm just trying to get the markers to dry quicker so that I can do the erasing. Because as I mentioned before, if you go right in there after you've put the ink down with your eraser, you're potentially going to rip the paper. Even though this paper is 160 GSM, you could still rip it. I've done it. That's how I know. And then this is that makeup brush that I use to kind of like sweep the eraser markings off of my page. Here I'm just using a Uni-ball Signo white gel pen to go over that blue marker that I kind of went over the Dutch door onto the next page with to kind of cover it up a little bit. The Uni-ball Signo white gel pen, I've heard a lot of people say that it's like their favorite white gel pen, but for me, I don't know. It's okay. It doesn't cover up like I want it to a lot of the time. So you'll see me go over that blue mark a couple times, and if you look really closely, you can see it already bleeding through the white. So how good is it really? Not that I'm bad mouthing it because I do use it a lot. I'm just saying that for certain projects and for certain inks, it doesn't cover up. So you might want to keep that in mind for, your creative projects if you use it. Here I'm just putting a little miniature calendar off to the lower right corner of our Dutch door. And I do this so that you can still see it when the Dutch door is closed, just for like a reference point. Like if I needed to know what day it was real quick without going through my weeks. And then I'm kind of keeping this the same as my January and February setup, where on the opposite and back of the Dutch door, I'm going to put my movies and music. And I do this because I've been cutting my Dutch doors at the halfway point of my page, which it doesn't give me a whole lot of room to write the titles of my songs and their artists or my movie titles. So I just kind of do this to fill up space, and then I try to like do a double space for my stamps that I use for my music and movies. This way I have enough room. And then I think I'm going to use some more bold colors to fill in the word music and movies that kind of go along with my hex sign. So here I'm using like a bold purpley color, and then I'm going to do a bold blue for the opposite. And another reason why I picked those colors is because my stamps that I use for my movies and music, I feel like will match these colors pretty well. I don't always do that. Like I'm not a matchy-matchy person when it comes to colors, but for this one I thought that it looked pretty good. And here I'm just I'm resorting to whiteout or correction tape because I'm just not happy with how that white Uni-ball Signo pen covered that blue mark up. I know that there's like paint pens and other gel pens that you can use that might cover up better, but I don't have my white Posca paint pen anymore. I used all of the paint in it, and then my gel pens I just didn't have with me. But from my experience using them, they are the Jelly Roll pens. They don't cover up very well either. They seem like they're even more watery than the gel that's in the Uni-ball pen. So if I had to choose between the Uni-ball pen and the Jelly Roll pen, I would pick the Uni-ball pen. And I'm not really doing anything special here other than stamping the page, but I am skipping every other line, like I said before, so that I can have make sure I have enough room to write titles. And that was something I was a little bit disappointed in with my February bullet journal, is that I didn't even watch, I don't even think I watched half of the movies that I wrote down. So I probably should have skipped 2 spaces to allow for less entry spots for movies. The music I'm not worried about because I have no problem picking out songs that I like every month. Most of the times I pick out more songs than what I have uh, space for. So I'm not worried about that. But the movies, yeah, I think of the 12 or 15 that I had in February, I only watched 3 or 4. I don't know. Feel free to count whenever I do the February flip through. I don't know. I didn't keep track. Now it's time to put my habit tracker in. And this is something else that I've noticed with my bullet journal that I am not being consistent with. You would think that similarly to the mood tracker and the line a day gratitude tracker, that this would be something that would attract me to using my bullet journal daily, but it doesn't. And not for me, anyways. And I thought that if I changed the habits that I track, that that would change, like it would improve. But nope, that didn't seem to make a difference either. It's not that I don't want to do this anymore because I definitely see benefit in it, but maybe I need to do a different tracker, like a different type of tracker. So this one that I'm drawing is something that I've never done before, and it's basically calendar blocks that are alternating. And I just thought that I would change them up a little bit by making them all different colors. So, like, I'm using a red, I'm using a blue, I'm using like a green, and I'm just going in there and doing the outline of the habit calendar blocks in a different color. And then what I'm going to do is use the Uni-ball liner pens to separate the dot grid boxes for each day of the month. So if you're curious about trying this type of a habit tracker, what it is it's 3 blocks wide. And then the first block where you write what habit you're tracking is 9 blocks long. And then the block where you have your calendars is 11 blocks long. And I did 11 blocks just because there's 31 days in March. So you could adjust that if you have a shorter month, for example. You could even adjust the width if you had, say, a 30-day month and you wanted to do 15 blocks per line. I mean, obviously, you would have a longer calendar block, but you would have a thinner habit block. So, in other words, you would be able to have more on the page potentially. You probably wouldn't be able to alternate the blocks though if you did that, just because of the space that you would need for your calendar block. It would kind of like push your habit blocks like flush left. So that's something to keep in mind also. I wanted to do like a shadow, a drop shadow of my habits, but instead I just did a little highlight underneath, and I did that with a bold yellow. And then I did reference my hex sign for what colors I use because I wanted something from the same color block or color family that I used for that. So I got this deep rose um, to use. That was the bottom flower, the bottom center flower of the hex sign. And now I'm just taking that uni liner and I'm separating those grid blocks. So interestingly, something else that I notice about myself is I've been doing bullet journals for almost 2 years now, and I am getting much faster at setting them up. I think I did this in less than, I'd say, 4 hours. And then that was all the pencil marks. Like, I'm not going to do the whole setup with you guys for the sake of time, but what I'm showing you in today's video was about an hour and a half. And basically, what I'm noticing about myself is that if I'm doing the same type of design like I am here with the habit trackers, I get bored. So I'm going to skip over and start my weeks and line my quote. And like, this isn't an attention thing, so it's not like, I don't know, like some type of a disorder. It's nothing like that. It just, I'm trying to go quickly for the sake of the video, so I just jump around, in other words. And the quote that I'm working on, the opposite of my habit tracker, I'll read that to you guys. It says, I call architecture frozen music. And again, I thought that that was really appropriate too, because Goth, when he says that, he's talking about how he finds architecture beautiful. And that was one of the things that I was drawn to when I was watching Beauty and the Beast, was how pretty the village is. And I think that it's really appropriate to have that quote in here, especially since I decided to like do an urban sketch interpretation of a German townhouse, because it's very iconic of the movie. It's very iconic of like the German influenced French village area. And I don't know, I thought that it made sense. There are some other quotes that I have on the rest of the week spread, But like I said, I'm not going to do those with you for the sake of time for the video. Instead, what I'll do is show you guys that when I flip the month of March when I do my April setup. So I will read the rest of the quotes to you now in case you're interested in which ones I used. So the architecture one that I just did is for the like partial week at the beginning of March, so the 1st through the 3rd. And then the following week, excuse me, the quote that I used was, "The soul that sees beauty may sometimes walk alone." And I thought that was so appropriate because my inspiration came from Beauty and the Beast. Because my interpretation when I watched that, or my perception of Belle specifically, was that like she was holding out. She wasn't gonna go for Gaston, even though like all the other women in the village wanted him. She was, sticking to her guns, and she's like, no, like I want something different. So I thought that that was really interesting because she was alone. She was by herself in that thinking. Then for the next week, the quote that I used was, "Every day we should hear at least one little song, read one good poem, see one exquisite picture, and if possible, speak a few sensible words." And that just sounded like something that Belle would say to me. I don't know why. Um, I think because she's always talking about how she finds adventures in books, that it just sounded like something that she would say. So, of course, I put that in there. The following quote for the next week I wrote is, "The moment one definitively commits oneself, then providence moves too. Whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it. Action has magic, power, and grace." And I loved that quote because that reminded me of Belle's father. In the beginning of the movie, he is preparing like his next greatest invention to take to the fair. And it just is very inspiring, and that quote made me think of him because, like, even though his ideas are kind of outlandish and they're very detail oriented and he puts a lot of intense thought into creating them, they're unlike anything anyone else is able to envision in the village. But Belle believes in him and Belle supports and promotes him. So I think that that quote is really important. Like, it speaks to me and it reminds me of their relationship and that dynamic. The following week, the quote that I used is, "A man sees in the world what he carries in his heart." And of course, I wanted to have that quote included because I thought that that was very true to the story of Beauty and the Beast, too. Because, the beast becomes the beast, correct? Because he didn't give shelter to the poor woman in the storm. And unbeknownst to him, she was actually a witch, a good witch, who was able to turn him into the beast because he turned her away. And it's kind of like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, you know? Like, there's also a quote from that movie. I don't remember which character says it, but they say that for who could ever love a beast? And it's true to that quote. Like, it is what you think it is because it's in your heart. It's not because that's what it actually is, you know? I mean, he was a prince in the form of a beast, and nobody could see him as the prince except for Belle. Like, Belle fell in love with him for who he was, not because he was a monster, or not because he was generous, or, let her go and return to her father. It was because of who he was, and who she became, like who she started to know him for. So I thought that that was really fitting. Of course, it had to go in there. So the reason why I'm not doing those weeks with you is because how I'm designing this first week of, or this first partial week of March right now, is how they're all going to look. And I'm basically using a gold gel Uni-ball Signo pen um, to create like a gilded vine. And this was inspired also from Beauty and the Beast because at the end, whenever they're all turned back into humans and the castle turns back into the castle instead of this haunted mansion, everything is gilded. Like all the designs on the outside of the castle, the gargoyles turn into these beautiful statues. Everything's gilded. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking the vine and the leaves and I'm turning them gold with this pen. And then I'm going to take a reddish pink Uniball Signo gel pen and I'm going to draw little roses along the gold vine. And that's going to be representative of the rose that's encased in the glass. What are those called? Conchs? I don't remember what they're called. But basically the glass protector that the rose sits in. And it's supposed to look crystallized, and that's why I'm using the gel pen to draw them to kind of give them that sparkly crystal type appearance. And I'm going to do all the weeks the same. Some weeks might have larger vine and leaves and roses, but for the most part, what you're seeing here is how the other ones are going to look. So that's why I didn't do them. And then the only other spread that I'm not going to do on film with you today is my month in Polaroids because I think that that spread speaks for itself. I do it the same every month. And I just write month in Polaroids really small at the top. I usually do it within a 2 grid uh, height. Like I don't go beyond that. And here is that reddish pink pen that I was just talking to you about for creating those roses. And I'm not doing anything fancy like my Sketchin' Sundays type drawings. I'm just doing like a spiral center and then I'm doing a little swoop at the bottom of the spiral to create the bottom of the bud. And I might get a little bit more elaborate with how the roses look in the other weeks of the month. I haven't decided yet. I kind of like how the little spiral roses look, so we'll see. Time will tell. And then I'm going to be using that German folk art throughout the weeks also. So anywhere where I have space that I've written a quote, I'm going to do a little bit of it. So as you can see at the bottom of this quote, you can barely see it. I started to draw like some floral leaves, and that is something that I'm going to carry on with the other weeks. And then I'm just going to take those new Uni-ball fine liners and write in the day and the date for each of the little blocks. So basically, I'm taking the each page and I'm blocking it off into quarters. So each spread will have enough space for 8 days, but because there's only 7 days in a week, one of the 8 blocks will be reserved for a quote. And I've decided to, this is an update, that for the months of March and April, I will not be participating in an art challenge like I have in the past 2 months because I want to focus my energies on the 100-day project. So this spread, unlike my other ones, is not going to have blocks for like a doodle a day. Instead, that's going to be reserved for my Hobonichi Techo. So I'm just finishing up here with some erasing of my pencil. These were notes where I put my Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I'm going to erase those with that makeup brush. But yeah, those are the updates I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this. I know that it was really, really chatty. In the future, I hope to have just these videos with music to them in case you don't want to listen to me talk. So that's something you can look forward to as soon as I figure it out. But that's what I have for you. So please like this video, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share. And I'll just do a quick flip through of what we created, and then I will see you guys in the next video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.